So I have to say that I feel a little bit overdressed for this interview, but there was no way that I was going to show up to the interview without a sport coat and without a lapel pin. It just seemed too fitting.
You have to, and I would have too, but I was out here working in the shop, so I just threw on a sweater. I wasn't going to go throw on a jacket, unfortunately.
I would expect that at this point in the year, you're really, really busy.
Yeah, it's straight in the middle of holiday season and Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. So it's already been crazy, honestly, like since September. And November has been the craziest month I've ever had. So I'm doing my best to keep up.
Well, busy is good because that means that you're making money, right?
It's true. So definitely good. It's still a side business for me. So it's not quite a full-time thing, but it's every month is closer to that. So
there it is. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who don't know you and explain what it is that you do?
Yeah. So my name is Justin Trewitt. I'm the owner of Dapper Woodworks, and Dapper Woodworks specializes in making sartorial storage solutions and accessories. So what that means is I make custom wood tie racks, belt racks, shoe horns, lapel pins, cufflinks, all sorts of organizational items for the closet and to store your accessories, and then as well as those handmade gift type items like the lapel pins and shoe horns.
I have to say you have a really appealing company name, Dapper Woodworks, and there's kind of two parts to that. There's the Dapper and the Woodworks part. So I thought it'd be interesting to kind of like home in for a moment on the Dapper part. So I thought I'd ask you, how did you get interested in style and in particular in menswear?
Yeah, so my interest in style pretty much started in college. I was doing my business major, and throughout that time, I started reading a couple online menswear blogs. This was in like 2007, 2008. And there was all sorts of menswear blogs out there. So I started reading those and just learning more about style and menswear. And then when I started working an internship, I was wearing a suit and tie, and just really wanted to learn how to wear that item of clothing and then accessorize with ties and pocket squares and then learning about higher quality shoes. And so that just kind of started then, and it's just only increased since there. So
what motivated you initially? Because a lot of men who get involved in menswear, typically they have a motivation. Like, for example, if we're talking about me, I became interested in menswear because I was interested in career advancement. And so I had in my head this idea that I wanted to learn how to dress well. And I just started to try my best as possible, given what I'd seen before, to dress well. So that meant just like putting on sport coats, and they were really, really cheap. But then I started to learn that there was like a correct way to dress. At least I think that there's a correct way to dress. And so I became fascinated from that angle. And so initially it was just me trying to focus on advancing my career and using style as a tool to achieve that. Would you say that that was a similar motivation for you, or was there another motivation?
I think that was pretty similar for me. I mean, when it started in college, it was mainly just learning how to dress nicer than jeans and t-shirts. So it was more just, casual pieces I was wearing, whether just, wearing a button up to class or something that looked better than sweats. And so part of that was just wanting to differentiate myself in that atmosphere. But then in the professional world, I had the internship, and then I worked full time selling insurance. I realized it wasn't something I wanted to do, but while I was doing that, everybody daily, it was suits and ties, and most of the interns didn't know how to dress at all. So part of that was just differentiating myself from them by looking more professional. And then that just continued on as I worked full time there for a couple of years. And also, there were lots of guys that were well more advanced than me, spending a couple $1,000s on custom suits and stuff. And I knew that was not something I could do. So I wanted to learn how to do that affordably, but still be able to look nice without looking like a slob. So
yeah, look nice without also being broke.
Yeah. I had no money.
So you went to what university?
I went to Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas.
Arkansas, is that where you're from?
No, I grew up in near the Dallas area in Plano, Texas. Spent my whole life there, and then we're back generally in the same area, just in a different suburb of Dallas in Sac City, Texas now.
So did you choose to go to Arkansas for a specific reason? Like, was it the particular school and the major, or what was it that drew you to that particular school?
Yeah, primarily the school and the major. So I did finance and management, a business major. And then part of it was I had a couple of friends going there. And then, I mean, it was nice too. It was only 4 hours from home. So it was just far enough, but not close that I would go back every weekend. And it's beautiful up there in Arkansas. So I really enjoyed spending those 4 years up there.
Yeah. So when you initially went to get your degree in business, did you have in mind a Dapper Woodworks company, or what was your initial kind of business idea, if you had one?
Yeah. So when I started the business, I had been woodworking for a few years. When we moved into our house about 6 years ago, we didn't have any furniture. So I just learned how to start making things and bought a few tools and wood and made some pieces for our house. And then really just did that for a few years, just things here and there. And when my wife quit her teaching job to stay at home with our first son, I was like, how do I turn this woodworking thing into a business? And I was like, I like woodworking and I like menswear. There's got to be some way to combine these things. So I started with, I'd made myself a rack, just a cheap piece of wood with a dowel rod on it to hold my pocket squares, because I had 20 or 30 pocket squares and there was no good ways to store them. I was like, surely somebody would buy this too. So I put it up on Etsy, and I was like, what else would go with this? So I made a few tie racks, and it's just expanded from there.
When you first put the pocket square holders up on Etsy, how did they do?
So I started with that one, and then I made a tie rack, and I think I sold one tie rack after having those up there for a month. And I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And then I think I sold the pocket square organizer. So I went into my closet and grabbed it off the wall to go pack it up. And my wife was like, you're going to sell that one? It's like, yeah. She's like, you should make another one. Okay. Yeah, the quality was not quite there when I first started. So I remade a new one, made it a little bit nicer. And that's kind of been the story since then, just improving tiny little things here and there to get to the point of the quality that my products are now.
I see. So let's focus in on the other part of your company name, Woodworks. So you already mentioned sort of how it is that you got started with the company. Started by making, it seems like, if I understand you correctly, making furniture for your house. Did you have any experience with woodworking before that? I don't know what it's like in Texas, but here in California, when you're in 7th and 8th grade, you have like certain options in school. And one of those options for like, they have like practical options in middle school. And one of them is you either do like woodworking or art or music. And one thing I did when I was in 7th and 8th grade is I actually did woodworking. Now, that's as far as my talents went in woodworking, of course. But did you have any experiences like that?
No, but I wish I would have. So no, I got into it just, like I said, when we bought the house and didn't have furniture. I was there were different blogs online, and it's like, that looks fun and cheaper than buying furniture. So that was how I got into it, and realized also, though, I didn't want to make furniture. There's just lots of things involved. You need more space, and you got to have just the thought of designing new pieces for every different person was seemed like too much work. So that's how I decided to make the smaller items, like those racks, the tie racks, and really just stuck with that and try to make them as good as possible.
I see. So when did you start? I guess I should ask you, what is your most popular product?
Yeah, the custom tie racks, I'd say, are by far the most popular thing that I'm making. That, and then the belt racks next. So a lot of people will buy the custom tie rack and then they'll buy a matching belt rack with that. So.
See, that's interesting. I would have guessed that it would have been your lapel pins.
Yeah, surprisingly, it's not. That is probably more what my Instagram shows, just because I have so many people taking really good photos of lapel pins. But people don't take pictures of their dark closets as much as they take pictures of things that they're wearing on their jackets. So
yeah, that's a very good
to have
point.
so many lapel pin pictures, but I don't have really nice tie rack pictures, even though that's what I'm. I mean, they may be the same amount of numbers, but I mean, tie racks cost more, so I'm that's definitely bringing in more of the money than lapel pins right now.
Yeah. I want to focus a little bit on the lapel pins because I have about 10 of them. So of course, that's the thing that I've purchased most from you. Although I do also have one of your tie racks, which has been a godsend. I'll get to that shortly. But as far as the lapel pins go, I was kind of curious. How do you get inspiration for your lapel pins? And the reason that I asked that is because I follow Mark Garrett on Instagram. I don't know if you know who Mark Garrett is, but I believe he's either the founder or the owner of Marling and Evans, which is one of the companies that Spier Mackay purchases fabrics from and makes their sports coats, et cetera, from. And he goes for long walks on the countryside. And you can tell that he gets a lot of his inspiration. Sometimes he says this explicitly. He gets his inspiration for how his fabric looks from the way that the English countryside looks, in its patterns. And he sort of gets inspiration from that. And I was curious whether you get any inspiration from anything that you see in order to like create your lapel pins.
Yeah, not specifically as far as just seeing things in my everyday world. And I'm like, oh, that would be a cool color for a lapel pin. But really the inspiration, it really just comes from when I find a unique material. I've always got my eyes open for new and unique pieces. I mean, so I started with exotic woods, a lot of the woods that I already used on my tie racks, but there was so many more exotic woods that I started trying out, and they're a lot cheaper to buy when you're just buying small pieces. And so I started with those, and I think one of the places I did find inspiration was pen makers and knife makers. Both of those two worlds, people that make custom wood writing pens, they use wood pen blanks. So it would look something like this, and then they would turn it on a lathe, and that's how they make the pen. And there's tons of people out there that make these just beautiful pen blanks. And that's how I started buying neat colors and patterns, and then also seeing knife makers. A lot of these custom knife makers use just some wild materials, and I'm like, oh, that would be cool for a pen. So I just go find the maker of whatever the material is, and snatch up some new pieces. So it's just really
that's
wherever I find stuff from a lot of other makers is where I find inspiration. So
yeah, that's one of the things I find really fascinating about your lapel pins is like where you get these unique materials. So for example, I have one of your lapel pins that's made of, I believe this is technically the word Fordite. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so can you tell a little bit about where you got the Fordite and what Fordite is?
Yeah. So I think I originally discovered Fordite, it may have been through Etsy or something. I'll look on Etsy a lot of times for different materials, but I'd seen it on some kind of thing. I don't know if it's a piece of jewelry or something, but I noticed that lots of jewelry makers use it to make earrings or necklaces or rings. And I was like, that is a crazy material. So yeah, Fordite is basically hundreds of layers of automotive paint. And it's a byproduct of the manufacturing process. Whenever cars go through the paint booths, they're always on a rack that moves the car through the booth, and those racks have layers and layers of paint that is heat treated and then accumulated. And every once in a while, they have to knock off these giant chunks of this paint, and so that's how Fordite was discovered. I mean, some person, I don't know when, the 60s or 70s, just decided they could use this material as for jewelry or something else, because they noticed just the beautiful patterns in it. And so that's kind of how that became an actual material. And the Fordite, it's, based off of a Ford automotive plant. I think that's where it was originally discovered. But lots of other companies make Fordite just from the painting process. So I've used some from like Corvette factories or Jeep factories. And it's just a matter of finding different people that have a big slab of it. And then I'm like, oh, that looks cool. So I buy a big chunk and turn into some pins and cufflinks.
So I noticed on your Instagram stories the other day that you were also sourcing some new, very interesting material for your lapel pins. I think I saw, correct me if I'm wrong, but you got some of the material that's used for the seats in particular college stadiums. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's another maker that I found online, and he specializes in making custom pin blanks from stadium seating, whether that's college or professional stadiums. And so a couple of these, like I have it right here, like this one. This is from Pittsburgh, and it's so real close. So you can see he basically takes like the plastic seating and then shreds it up into tiny pieces and then mixes it with different colored resin. Got one for the Dallas Cowboys, of course, being the local team here. And then like this one was from the Notre Dame Stadium. And it's actually, this is like real wood from a stadium seat. So I grabbed a few more. I put the offer out there because I was going to be buying some. And several people asked me if I could get certain things. And most of the stadiums I was actually able to find different pieces for. So I think that's a really unique material. And then the guy who produces it too also sends like a certificate of authenticity with each one, like showing that it's really from the stadium, and then like a whole barcode. It's, make it seem as legit as you can. So
yeah, that's pretty incredible. So it's incredible not only because it's like you're going to have a decoration on your lapel, but there's also some sort of, I don't know what the correct word is, I want to say symbolic value. Have you found that the people who are interested in those particular items are actually alumni or currently going to those schools?
Yeah, it seemed like mostly alumni. When I posted that, people were like, oh, can you get this from this college or that stadium or something? So yeah, I did get several college stadium ones. So my guess is that they are alumni from that school. So.
Gotcha. That's really cool, especially considering I saw on your Instagram, which was amazing, that Patrick Mahomes was actually wearing one of your lapel pins. So was his lapel pin made from a Chiefs stadium seat?
I had the idea of, I wanted to do that, but in the timeline of getting them done, I did not have enough time to get that material ordered. And so if we end up doing some more in the future, I'm definitely going to be making some, because I can get some from the Chiefs Stadium. So
that's really cool. Talk a little bit about how that came about.
Yeah, so I follow the guy that makes all the suits, Stephen Richards from Richards Bespoke, and we've both been following each other on Instagram for a while. And he's a customer of mine, so he had bought a few tie racks and stuff for his personal closet, I think earlier this year, and I had seen him posting Patrick Mahomes, I think maybe Super Bowl outfit or something that he had made for him earlier this year. And I was like, hey, you want to get a lapel pin on Patrick? Wink, wink. So he was like, yeah, just reach out later before the next season, and we'll see if we can make something happen. So I hit him up again and was like, hey, you making any new suits for him? So he had a couple new suits in progress, and he sent me some of the different fabrics he'd chosen for the new suits. And I had designed probably 4 or 5 different patterns or different pins that were either matching or complementary to the fabrics that he had chosen for his new suits. And I sent them off and then waited, and then got a text from Steven a few weeks ago. He's like, hey, your lapel pin's out there. Cool. So yeah, it was cool seeing everybody's reaction to that. I've never had anybody of that caliber wearing something I've made. So it's definitely cool.
Yeah, that's got to be incredible to see somebody wearing the thing that you made, especially somebody that famous, right?
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I honestly don't like keep up with any sports at all. I mean, I know who he is, but and it was just cool. I mean, everybody else is like, "Oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever." I'm like, "Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's awesome." But
it's crazy. You're from Texas. I thought everybody in Texas loved football.
I mean, most people do. I could care less. I'm too busy working out here in the garage to keep up with sports. So,
well, that's how you get Patrick Mahomes to wear your lapel pins, right? You got to be working.
That happens. I didn't even watch the game he played in, but apparently it was a game, and it was his lucky lapel pins. So.
Yeah. So, other than lapel pins, what other accessories, if any, do you offer?
So yeah, just in the last couple months, I worked with my guy who makes all my lapel pin hardware to get custom cufflink hardware made. Those. So it's basically just like the lapel pins, but this part here is just longer. So they're the same size. They're fairly small and subtle, which is what I like about the lapel pins. But they're just made to a more cufflink size to fit in the shirt cuffs. So the cufflinks have been a big hit lately. And then I don't have any other wearable accessories. I mean, any other wearable wood accessories such as like tie clips or wooden bow ties, I've always been strongly against. When I started doing woodworking in menswear, I was like, I will never make a wooden bow tie or like that. Yeah. So is
it because you think they look ridiculous?
Yeah, I mean, I come from the classic menswear world, and people are definitely snobs about that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, a wooden bow tie doesn't really fit into that. It's just kind of cheesy. So that wasn't for me. But as far as wearable accessories, I mean, I think the pins are cool. There's a nice subtle touch, and honestly, like most of them, you can't even tell if they're wood, or I don't even use wood with many of the materials. But other things I'm working on, don't have one over here. Just a smaller size shoehorn. I have my long shoehorns like this, but I wanted to make a smaller one, and that was kind of inspired from a lot of the knife makers that I'd followed, and making, so the small shoehorn just has a handle that's made similar to a knife handle, where I can use a lot of really unique materials like I do for the lapel pins too. So I'm excited about those. I haven't made a ton of them, but I'm excited to really get some crazy things made with those.
Yeah. Do you have any projects in the works for new types of accessories that you're going to offer?
Let's see. I have lots of ideas. Trouble is finding time to make those. So lots of things I want to do. I guess the other thing I did release too, we started making like metal collar stays. I was really intrigued by metalworking, just the way like my pins and my pegs are made. And so I was able to get some collar stays manufactured that were then laser engraved with like unique patterns, just to make them a little different than your average collar stay. It's not woodworking, but still just a fun little project that I wanted to work on. Yeah, that's all that I have time for at the moment. So.
So in addition to accessories, you also offer, you have storage items. So one of the things that I purchased from you before is a tie rack. And I have to say that thing is a godsend. The reason I say that is because before I got the tie rack, I was using those. I'm sure that you've seen them before, which is probably why you came up with this idea. But the plastic ones that you can like order from Amazon that have like the little clips on them so that when you put your tie in there, it'll stay. And I ran into the issue that I have over 100 ties. So I was running into the issue of, first of all, I was like taking up so much closet space with those hanger ones. And then also I was finding that it was leaving, because of the little clip thing on the inside, it was starting to leave dimples on some of my ties. And I was like, damn, I'm spending all of this money on ties. And the thing that I'm using to store it is damaging it. So was that kind of your motivation for creating tie racks? Did you have a similar experience, or were people complaining to you about the same thing?
Yeah, it didn't really come from a customer complaint or from or seeing what people's reactions were to normal tie racks. It's just more of seeing that need for myself. I mean, I had a smallish collection of ties and just noticed there were no nicer options. I know how much people spend on ties, and like to put your, $100 or couple $100 ties on a plastic hanger didn't make much sense. And the wood ones aren't much better. They're usually just cedar wood with cheap hardware and not even like sanded or finished or anything. So they can easily snag ties and stuff. And so just realizing there was no nice options. I mean, I looked everywhere. It started on Amazon, and then go on Etsy, and there wasn't anybody making anything like that. So I just had some scrap wood and made one for myself, and I was like, these are cool. And then people started asking for custom sizes, and I just kind of kept refining the design. I mean, my first couple, if you'd see them now, I'd be like, they're embarrassing. But
why do you say that? Out of curiosity, how did they start out? With what did you create them?
No, I mean, they probably weren't terrible at all, but I knew from the start I wanted to use solid hardwoods. So instead of using like cheap pine from Home Depot or cedar wood, I wanted to really use nice woods with natural colors that I could use a natural finish on. So, I mean, that's what I started with. And I think maybe the first couple, I didn't even have a drill press to drill straight holes into the wood. And so the holes are a little janky. And then, but as I made a few more, the process became better. And that's just the deal with anything. Like the more you do it, the better it's going to get. And so I still have a few of the ones that I originally made because I took them down after the other ones continued to get better. So.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about like the different options you offer for tie racks. So I have the one that has, I don't know how long it is, but it has 100 pegs on it because I have over 100 ties. So I needed a large one. But what other options do you offer?
Yeah. So when I had originally started, I was just making, I think 2 or 3 different sizes, so like a 12-inch and an 18-inch long one. And I think 4 different woods and maybe 4 different hardware finishes. But I kept getting requests from customers to make either bigger sizes or custom sizes in between that. And so to where it's at today, my custom tie racks come in basically any size from 12 to, I think I have 48 inches listed on my website, but I think I've made them as long as 60 inches before. So all those sizes, basically every 2 inches. And then that way you can pretty much fit it in any space that you need. And then I have probably 12 different woods and then 4 different hardware finishes. So lots of different options. And that basically gives people any of the woods and hardware you can pretty much match with any other closet furniture or dressers that you have to make it look as consistent as possible throughout your house.
I see. So is that the reason why you offer the different types of woods? I just assumed that there might be a difference in terms of like how durable or how lasting they are. I just picked the one that I thought was the most beautiful. That's what I picked because I don't have any furniture that looks anything like the tie rack anywhere in my apartment. But yeah, that was the reason why I thought there was the differences between the materials.
Yeah. Any of the woods I use are all going to be, they're either domestic or exotic hardwoods. So being hardwoods, they are much sturdier and more dense than just like construction grade lumber. But then you really notice the quality and the beauty of them by the natural finish. So every piece that I do, I just use a natural finish. So I'm not staining. I do have one painted option, but I'm not really staining them different colors. They all the natural color of the wood. And so that's how I've picked most of my woods. Or I'll just go to the lumber store and see a different wood I've never used. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And just pick up half a board and see how it looks on a tie rack. And usually it looks cool. So
Yeah, I do have to say I don't know if it's correct to refer to it as a piece of furniture, but I'll use that phrase. It's the most beautiful piece of furniture in my house, I have to say.
there you go. So I don't know if I call it furniture, but I don't really know what else to call it. I mean, I guess it's a wall accessory, art piece, if you will. I don't call it that.
Yeah. So I had a question about how your, sorry, these AirPods keep falling out. How has your business fared, without going too much into detail, fared during the pandemic? I know a lot of people who have online businesses, and they said that during the pandemic, their sales have basically skyrocketed. It seems like the pandemic has been good for anybody who has a primarily online business. Has that been true for you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, even during 2020, I think my business pretty much doubled, and yeah, that was pretty great. And part of it is just, yeah, most people are shopping a lot more online, and I think the other part is just at that point, after doing it for 3 years, people are finally discovering me and realizing the need for a custom tie rack or ways to make, as they're spending more time in their house, realizing they could improve things here and there, and maybe adding a custom tie rack or belt rack was part of that improvement. So yeah, definitely good things. Even though as crazy as last year was, business was definitely good. And then it's only been growing in this year. So it's definitely a good time to be in e-commerce. And I'm super thankful for already having my website up and going. And I do lots of research about website best practices and all sorts of how you can improve things here and there. So I definitely enjoy learning more about that aspect.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting to me because it seems almost ironic, because your business is tailored towards men who are involved in menswear, who are either wanting to store their menswear or want to improve it with a decoration. And it seems almost ironic that at a time when people were going out perhaps the least in, who knows, 50 years, that your business that caters to those people would skyrocket. How do you explain that?
I think that's the funny thing, because I don't know exactly, but my biggest guess is I think the biggest part of it was just more people finding out about me. I'm still a relatively unknown brand, and so the more traffic that I can get, I think when people see it, they understand the need, and they realize it's a cool piece to add to their closet. And maybe it was just they're not wearing their ties or accessories as much, and they realize they might as well store them someplace nice. So yeah, I don't know the explanation, but I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. So this is also something of a personal question. I'm always curious how it is that men become interested, those who are involved in menswear, how they become interested in menswear. And I wanted to ask you if you have a particular style inspiration. Is there somebody who you look up to in terms of the way that they present themselves, style?
I don't know if I can name anyone specifically. Most of my inspiration has just come from years of learning or just reading lots of menswear blogs, and then now kind of in the age of Instagram, seeing people posting their daily outfits and seeing things I like from that, and maybe copying an aspect here from one person or an aspect from another person. And I love seeing this age that we're in, and people that are posting their outfits like you, or especially other customers that like to wear their lapel pins, and seeing just how unique that each person uses the accessories that I make. Like, no styles are exactly the same. And so it's really cool just seeing different perspectives on just how people like to use the products that I make. And I get just inspiration from that. And it's always fun to see.
Yeah, I would say probably the same for me as well. I don't think that there's like one particular person, one figure I look up to and like, man, I really wish I could have a style that is just like theirs. But I'm like you in that anytime I'm on Instagram, I'm just looking at the way that people dress and I'm just like, I'll see, an outfit here, an outfit there. It's not one particular person, but I just pull inspiration from all different kinds of outfits, that all different kinds of, I don't know what the correct term is. I don't like the term influencers. So we'll just say enthusiast. We'll use all different kinds of enthusiast wear. That's where I get kind of my inspiration as well.
And you kind of, fit it into your own style and what works for you, and then in your job. And that's kind of what I've figured out. I mean, it's funny, I kind of have almost like two different styles. I mean, when I'm at the office every day, it's sport coat and trousers and a lapel pin and pocket square or something. I honestly like never wear ties, but when I'm home, I'm in jeans and a shirt or a cardigan and just something comfy. And I mean, I can't exactly wear a sport coat out here in the garage either. So
yeah, that's something that I've tried to work a little bit more on. Like, cause I built up my wardrobe for a long time and it was just like sport coats, trousers, dress shirts, and ties. And then I found out like not every occasion calls for a sport coat, dress shirt, tie, and trousers. And so I've tried to start incorporating like more casual pieces into it. And then I'm like you, like I live in two different worlds. The way that I dress when I go to work is entirely opposed to the way that I dress when I'm at home for the most part. It's probably sweatpants and a shirt most of the time and a fuzzy fleece sweater. But yeah. So I want to also ask you, because I want to ask everybody that I interview this question, where do you think that menswear is going in the next 10 years? What kind of changes do you expect there to be in menswear, if any?
That's a good question. I mean, we've all seen on the last year and a half, the rapid advance of casualization of the wardrobe and just people not needing to dress up as much. And I think me personally, I've seen just more people in the last maybe 6 months or the last year wanting to dress up more as they've been stuck at home, finding any and every occasion to look a little bit nicer. And I've still been just the normal day-to-day wearing my sport coat and trousers, but I do look for any occasion I can to rock a tie or anytime that I can. So I'm hoping that, we're still going to see more of a return to more of a classic menswear professional attire with ties and pocket squares. But I'm not an expert on the future menswear trends, and hopefully it's for the better. And for my business, is more people wearing ties, and that helps me too. But it's a great question. It's hard to tell just with how things can change so rapidly. But I know personally, I much enjoy. I'm just more comfortable, honestly, wearing men's or classic menswear pieces and dressing up and looking a little bit nicer. So,
yeah, it seemed like there were a lot of articles that came out towards the beginning of this year and last year. People were kind of predicting that there might be an explosion because people were locked down for so long that they're going to be desperate to go out and dress up. And so I expected there to be more, at least from what I can see here in California. Some places are still kind of half locked down. So it might still be waiting for our explosion, but it seemed like people might have like this resurgence of like the 1920s energy, after, the First World War, people just kind of like desperate to go out, have a good time, dress up. I haven't seen too much of that as of yet, but like, I think that going forward, it seems to me that there's probably going to be some kind of a synthesis, if you will. So because people are more and more wearing casual pieces and athleisure, I'm curious to see how that's going to blend with more classic menswear pieces. I mean, we have like might have something like a different kind of ivy is what I expect is going to happen. But just like you said, I'm no expert and I don't know anything about the trends. This is just what I'm seeing kind of with my own two eyes. I think there's going to be a blend of the casual or the athleisure with tailoring.
Yeah. I definitely have kind of wondered if the, explosion of people wanting to dress nicer is kind of an over exaggeration. And because I haven't seen too much of it. I've seen definitely people wanting to get dressed up a little bit nicer, but I mean, not anything crazy where people are just every day going out and wearing a suit. But I think you're going to see some combination in the middle. And from what I understand, lots of streetwear, these luxury brands that have been doing stuff with streetwear are coming more to a menswear point of view instead of focusing on the streetwear aspect. So that's something I also don't know too much about, but just listening to different podcasts and things like that. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you very much for taking time out of your day to have this interview. I know you're very, very busy right now, so I appreciate that very much. And it's Small Business Saturday, so thank you doubly.
Well, thanks, Barry. I appreciate it. It's been fun talking to you, and I always enjoy watching your content, and I'm happy that I could join on here for the discussion.
I appreciate that. So before we end, could you let people know where it is that they could find you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is at dapperwoodworks.com. And you can either send me a message on there or also on Instagram, just at Dapper Woodworks. Those are the two best ways to find me. And if you have any questions, always feel free to shoot me a message.
All right. Well, thank you again. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Cool. Thanks, Barry.